Hello all and welcome to another podcast. Alright, today we have health and safety in a fitness environment. Moving on from the last one which we did, which was about emergency procedures. Alright guys, you know the score, I'm going to go through this at a decent rate. If you need to stop and pause and go back, you can do. Off we pop. By the end of this podcast, you should be able to outline why health and safety is important in a fitness environment, identify the legal and regulatory requirements for health and safety relevant to work in a fitness environment, should be able to describe the duty of care and professional role boundaries in relation to special population groups, identify the typical roles of individuals responsible for health and safety in a fitness organisation, describe the types of security procedures that may apply in a fitness environment, and finally, describe the key health and safety documents that are relevant in a fitness environment. Okay, there's quite a few things to get through there. First and foremost, we'll start with a task. Why is health and safety important in the fitness environment? All right, guys, if you want to make some notes there, give this a bit of a pause, and when you're ready to continue, obviously press play again. That's how it works. Okay, so the importance of health and safety. Obviously, it's a legal requirement. You must abide by it, otherwise you can be prosecuted, you can be sued, and obviously you want to keep people safe as well. It's a duty of care. All right, as you are either a fitness instructor or even an assistant, anyone that comes into your organisation is under your supervision. Okay, and you have a duty of care towards them. You need to make sure that they're safe while they are with you. Alongside that, keep people and workplace safe. You want to be in a safe working environment as well. When you come to work, you want to make sure that wherever you're going to is safe for you to work and safe for the people around you as well. It's important as well to prevent accidents and emergencies. Again, leading on from what we just said, you don't want to go to work to have an accident or any kind of emergencies. You want to lower the risk as much as possible, and that's what health and safety does. If you follow health and safety protocol and policies and procedures, then it should minimise, risk and also the chance of any emergencies happening. And also, it's good professional practice. If you want to obviously progress within your careers, being health and safety conscious is integral to that. Okay, it's something that everyone that's got a professional mindset should be aware of it and should follow, basically. Another task. Name some of the key legislation, so some laws that apply in the workplace, and outline what is covered by different pieces of legislation or laws. All right, so just do want to pause this again. Note down what piece of legislation you know, and then we'll cover and see if you're right after you've written those down. So key legislation, includes the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. Okay, it's quite an old one. This identifies the responsibilities which both employers and employees have to themselves and members of the public. All right, so it's not just all down to the employer, the person that's employing everybody. It's also down to the workforce as well. Okay, you have to work as a team to ensure that health and safety is observed within the workplace. Another piece of key legislation is the Management of Health and Safety at Work Regulations 1999. A little bit more recent. And this one identifies in more detail what is required from employers to manage health and safety in the workplace. So that puts the onus more on the employers to make sure that they have everything in place for their employees, to basically take on board and then work with as well. Okay, but that one there is more geared towards the employers. Okay, so Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. Employers must make every attempt to ensure maximum health and safety requirements as far as is reasonably practical. Okay? What word is that there? Practicable? It's not a word. But as far as is reasonably, practical. Okay? So that means things such as making sure that there's a first aid box and a first aider on site, making sure that all risk assessments have been done, making sure that procedures and policies, emergency procedures and policies are in place. If you're doing all those things, then you're covering most bases there. Obviously, even if you could have all the procedures in the world, in place, you could have all the safety procedures, all the safety equipment, and accidents will still happen. Okay, that's just the nature of the world, basically. But if you've got everything in place, then there's no comebacks, and you've also made sure that the best of your ability, you try to keep everyone safe. If people aren't safe after that, there's nothing much else you can do. All right, apart from see what happened this time, okay, and then try and implement more safety procedures for the future. But there's only so much you can do without impeding on the day-to-day, job. For example, if you've got an exercise class, you've made sure that the environment's safe. You made sure that everyone is fit and healthy. They've all done pro formas, they've all had inductions. Someone could still potentially have a heart attack in your class. Okay, now that's through no fault of your own. You've done everything that you've had to do, but these things do just happen, still happen. Okay, but you will have done everything that is reasonably possible. Therefore, you're not open to any sort of legal proceedings, and also you should have. I mean, as much as it's not nice, if you have that happen, you should be safe in the knowledge that you've done everything that you can do in order to stop anyone from being at risk. All right, so Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, employers' responsibilities. So, the people that employ the staff, they need to provide and maintain equipment and work. It's to deal with substances such as chemicals safely. They need to provide information, instruction, training, and also supervise in some cases. So the employer should be giving all information and all training to their staff. If they just employ people and give them no training on how to deal with, harmful chemicals or how to deal with, first aid situation, then they are not fulfilling their responsibility as an employer. Okay, and obviously that then leads to an unsafe working environment, and also a working environment where staff and the employer can also be sued as well. They need to provide a health and safety policy statement when employing 5 or more people. They need to ensure that visitors and members of the public are not put at unnecessary risk. Okay, so make sure that there's not a sound system that's right next to the pool area that could be knocked in and obviously electrocute people. Moving on from that, the employees also have responsibilities. So the staff, again, by extension of the employer, also have responsibilities as well. They need to take care of their own health and safety, so making sure that what they're doing is safe. Okay, making sure that they're wearing the appropriate equipment, making sure they're not putting themselves in harm's way. And also they need to make sure that they're taking care of the health and safety of others as well. So if you're training somebody, making sure that the training that they're doing is appropriate for them, making sure that they're using the equipment appropriately, and also that they're dressed appropriately. And also have got the correct behaviours as well to be doing the actual session. If not, then obviously the employees and the staff need to then, make a judgment on that. Do you stop the session? Do you advise the person? And again, that's all down to the individual situation. Again, as I said before, it needs to be a kind of a team. All right, the employer and the employees do not work, exclusively with each other. It should be a team and need to cooperate with each other, outlining, if they see any risks anywhere. That's from the employee's perspective, and also the employee should make sure that staff training is up to date and that all employees are aware of what is, the current health and safety legislation, because a few things do change every now and again. And also the final bullet point there: do not misuse or interfere with anything provided for health and safety purposes. That could be safety equipment, defibrillator, and the first aid kit as well. Don't want to be interfering with any of that stuff, because if you do, and then something does happen, and anybody has to use the emergency equipment, and it's not working properly, it could cause, obviously a world of pain. You have then got Management of Health and Safety at Work Regulations 1999. Now, this piece of legislation states it is a legal requirement for employers to conduct a risk assessment on all work practices, equipment, and working environments. All right, a risk assessment, as the name suggests, it basically assesses any risk within the place of your work. Okay, now this could be: is the equipment safe? Is it old? Has it been used? It need replacing? If it does, but you're keeping it on anyway, what is the risk of harm occurring due to that piece of equipment? Is it a low risk? Is it medium? Is it high risk? If you're looking at medium and high risk, then it probably needs to be replaced. Okay. If anything did happen on your site, then the health and safety executive or your boss may want to see your risk assessment for that. And if it's not adequate or appropriate, again, you could be deemed not being in line with the management of health and safety, and therefore open to prosecution. The Health and Safety Executive, or the HSE, is a governmental body responsible for health and safety, and this defines risk assessment as a careful examination of what in your work could cause harm to people. Okay. Now, obviously, you want to minimise any sort of risk of harm to anybody, staff and clients included, within your work environment. Okay. Now, there are a few other pieces of legislation. You've got the Reporting of Injuries, Diseases and Dangerous Occurrences Regulations, 1995, or to make it easier, it's called RIDO. So you need to, basically, all injuries and diseases need to be reported to RIDO, basically, to make sure that everything's logged. Because if there becomes obviously a habit, or if there becomes a pattern of things happening in a certain workplace, it does suggest it's not a safe place to be working or for people to go there and work out. Therefore, obviously, steps need to be taken to address that. You've then got the Personal Protective Equipment at Work Regulations, 1992, or PPE. Just making sure that any relevant protective equipment that needs to be used in your line of work is being used. Okay. You've then got the Control of Substances Hazard to Health Regulations, or COSH as it's known. Now this really incorporates any kind of chemicals which you have on site. That could include cleaning products, products you use within certain machinery, products that you put in the pool such as chlorine. Okay, they all need to be controlled and kept safe, because obviously if members of the public, kids or vulnerable people get hold of these substances, they can cause harm, or in some cases even death. You've got employers' liability. Okay, so all employees should have, or it's compulsory to have, liability insurance, and that covers them against any accidents or emergencies to staff or clients on their site. And then finally on that list there, you've got the Manual Handling Operations Regulation. All staff should be trained in how to manually hand different types of equipment. Okay, heavy equipment, even light equipment, making sure they're using the correct technique. If they aren't using the correct technique, then obviously injuries can occur, such as pulled muscles, or in worst case scenario, if you're not lifting or operating machinery in a way that it should be used, that could cause serious injury and also could cause death as well. So we do need to make sure that we are conscious of all these pieces of legislation and that they are followed as well as possibly can be. All right, next up, you've got a task. You've got question and answers. What is the required duty of care for a fitness instructor? What are the role boundaries for special populations? And what are the roles of other people in the workplace? All right, take a pause there, put your answers down. You can see how you've done in the next section. So, duty of care, what does it mean? It means it's the obligation to apply a reasonable level of care towards an individual to avoid injury to that individual or his or her property. A reasonable level of care is considered to be that you have, to the best of your knowledge and ability, taking all precautions to minimise risk. Okay, so that could mean if you're in the gym, making sure that all equipment is where it's supposed to be. There's no free weights lying around. Making sure that the exercise is appropriate for the individual. So, for example, if you've got an elderly person and you're making them do high intensity training, it's probably not the best idea really, because it could cause obviously an onset of illness such as heart attack, stroke, or just passing out basically. All right. So you need to make sure that you're taking a reasonable level of care. All right. You're doing everything within your power to keep the environment which you're working as safe as possible. Health and safety relevant to an instructor. All right, so the general health and safety duties. You need to make sure that you're aware of the emergency action plans, or the EAPs. You need to make sure that you're doing relevant client screening to make sure that the exercises you're doing are relevant and safe. Obviously, it's your responsibility to check equipment, or the equipment that you're using at least. If you get equipment out and it's not of a good safety standard, you shouldn't be using it. All right. And next up, you obviously, as an instructor, you should be first aid trained. Okay, you need to make sure that you can administer first aid should any injuries or illnesses take place while you're at work. Now you've got EAPs here, very interesting. So EAPs detail a company's procedures in the event of accident or incident. Now, this could be anything like, a bomb threat, gas leak, fire within the building, or other life or death situations as well. The EAPs will give details on what to do in the event of any of these incidents or accidents, what you should do during these incidents or accidents, and then also what you need to do after. Okay, and that could be something as simple as writing a report and informing the relevant agencies that need to be informed. We did mention before RIDDOR. If it was a serious incident, obviously they would need to be informed as well, and they would want a written copy of what had happened. Employees will regularly test their staff to ensure their competencies in the event of such matters. Again, all that means is, regular fire drills, maybe bomb evacuations every so often. Obviously, regular training for first aid should be maintained to ensure that all staff are, aware of what to do in a first aid situation. All right, working practice policies. You need to make sure that all staff, have got the relevant competencies and qualifications. Make sure that public liability insurance, is in date. You need to make sure that your register of exercise professionals needs to be on that register if you are, obviously a personal trainer or fitness instructor. You need to make sure that you're doing inductions and you're screening correctly. You need to make sure that you've got a good idea of how to balance the risks of exercise and the exercise benefits. For example, if you've got, somebody that is in rehab from, a heart attack, you need to make sure that the exercise that you're doing, the benefits outweigh the risks of that exercise. Okay, so obviously you would have it as a low intensity, but you need to make sure that you're constantly monitoring the exercise in order to make sure that it's safe and appropriate. So you need to make sure you're aware of where to go in the event of a fire. Where the nearest telephone is, the nearest first aid kit and qualified first aider, and also something as simple as where the nearest drinking water is. Again, as we've mentioned before, you need to be checking the environment before and after the session to make sure that, first of all, you're arriving in a safe place, but then also that you're leaving the area in a safe place for the next people that come on as well. Because you can be liable if you've been in a certain environment and you've left it unsafe and someone gets injured after that, you are liable for that as well. And again, it's so important as well to report any damage and record any incidents and accidents that occur while you're in the workplace. All right, now we did cover a little bit of this, I think, in emergency procedures, but we'll go over it again. Duty of care and special populations. So duty of care is considered to be greater when dealing with individuals who have certain special population groups, such as children, young adults, older adults, ante and postnatal women, and disabled people. Okay, obviously these are all people that are in a bit of a more vulnerable situation than your mainstream population. Knowledge of the physiology processes involved with specific populations is vital. So understanding how the body changes during pregnancy, how the body changes during age. That could be for younger individuals or older individuals. You need to have a good knowledge of that. If you don't, then you're putting everybody at risk. Okay, you need to make sure that you're doing basically what you're paid to do, and you're doing your job properly, and you've got the good underpinning knowledge. If you've not, and you're just playing at it, then you're putting people at risk. All right, you need to make sure that you've got any additional qualifications required to work with special populations. Again, that's a big thing. You need to make sure that if you're working with, say, disabled people, you need to make sure that you've had the relevant training in order to keep them safe and to keep yourself safe. You've got health and safety roles and duties. So the health and safety officer has overall responsibility. Department lead has the responsibility for health and safety in named departments. The duty first aider is the person that's involved in managing first aid emergencies and accidents, so they administer the first aid. But saying that, everyone still has a responsibility to themselves and others. Okay, instructors will be required to carry out regular health and safety checks within the fitness environment. in accordance with their employers' policies and procedures. They could differ from site to site. Okay, so make sure that if let's say you had a job on one site and you got asked to work at another one, you then need to get up to speed with the specific site policies and procedures once you arrive there, because they will not be the same across every site. There'll be similarities, but they won't be the same across all sites. Okay, we're nearly there. We've got another thought storm here. Which health and safety documents are essential in the workplace? Give it a pause, write down what you think, and we'll see if you're right in this next section. So the health and safety documents that you need on site are the health and safety policy and procedures. Okay, so they should be stored in a central place. The health and safety poster, okay, which outlines key health and safety information. Incident and accident report book. Every site should have that. A risk assessment report for the site. Screening documents, okay, so PARQs, informed consent, all sites should have that. And client records as well, so emergency contacts, past medical, history, any sort of medication that anyone's taken, that should be logged somewhere as well and kept confidential. That's really important. Okay, moving on to security. What security arrangements may be required in the fitness environment? Again, guys, you know the score. Give this a pause. Write down your answers. We'll check if they're right. So you've got external gym security, such as video monitoring, or as we all know it as CCTV. Monitor the front door and parking area to make sure that everyone's safe outside and no one's coming on site or inside the building that shouldn't be. And also monitor every exit area from the inside as well to make sure that people aren't, getting in areas that they shouldn't be. You may have light security. Again, it depends, obviously, where you are and maybe even who's coming into your gym. I remember I worked once in a gym where we had some celebrities coming in, and obviously when those celebrities were coming in, that then required more security, because obviously that attracts more attention and the potential for, incidents or accidents to occur. You've got indoor gym security. Okay, so you might have, you can only get into the gym if you swipe a security card or your access card. You have panic alarms within the gym. You've got radios or mobile phones, to contact staff within the gym. Make sure that staff have relevant training in any kind of security measures that you want to implement. Discourage working alone as well. It should always be an eye line or eyesight of another member of staff. Another key piece of legislation, well, not legislation, but security there, is keeping all information of clients confidential. All right. Some of the information that clients share with you will be quite sensitive. You want to keep that, under lock and key, really. All right, guys, that's come to the end of our podcast for this subject. Now, you should now be able to outline all those bullet points there. I'm not going to go through them. You can read them yourself. If you can't cover those, as I always say, then please do go back to the podcast and re-watch areas that you're not sure on. If you still aren't being taught anything then do get in contact with me and we can approach it from a different angle and hopefully make sure that you are fully aware of the health and safety requirements within your organisation. All right, guys, thanks for listening. I'll be in contact soon.